This is the small scale or micro scale dehydration of propan-2-ol, old name isobutyl alcohol. We'll be passing propan-2-ol vapor over a catalyst of aluminium oxide and carrying out the experiment in this Pasteur pipette, this glass Pasteur pipette. We'll be using this small ethanol spirit burner as our heat source, and the first thing that we need to do is to seal off the end of the Pasteur pipette, and we can do that quite comfortably with the spirit burner. Once we get a good flame, so there, we've got a flame on the spirit burner now, and we just need to seal off the end of the Pasteur pipette. Just rotating nicely, and you'll see the glass end seal off, like so. We have to let that cool down, so let's extinguish the flame for a while and let the glass cool down before we can use it in our experiment. We'll be collecting the products of the dehydration over water, for which we use this small trough of water here. We've got a delivery tube with a piece of rubber tubing here, and a splint, a standard wooden splint that we need to cut into two. That's quite easy to do. And this so we can use these as spatulas and put things into the Pasteur pipette like so. Right, let's see if our tube is cool, and it is. It cools down quite quickly, and there it's sealed off. So now we can introduce isobutyl alcohol or propan-2-ol into our reaction vessel. We'll put about half a mil, measured using this plastic dropping pipette here. Put that carefully into the bottom of the glass pipette. Now, you should be able to see the alcohol in here, and if we, with a little flick at the bottom here, we can encourage it to go down into the airlock part of the pipette there. Probably got a little bit too much, so I might remove a little bit, just slightly too much. We'll see if we can get away with that. What we do then is to use ceramic wool to absorb the alcohol in the bottom of the pipette, and we need to put a small amount of the ceramic wool into the end of the pipette here, using our wooden splint as our ramrod, so to speak, and put that down into the alcohol like so, a little bit more, and that just stops the alcohol running the length of the pipette once we hold it horizontally. So there's our alcohol. We can clamp that into our clamp. Just remove the alcohol and the aluminium oxide for a second, get them out of the way, and that's clamped horizontally or thereabouts. You can adjust it slightly, of course, once it's clamped in position, and we need to clamp it at the end so that we can heat here, where my finger's pointing to, once we've put aluminium oxide catalyst into the tube. So let's do that. Here's our aluminium oxide, and again we'll be using the splint that we cut in half as a small spatula. You can see you can get quite a dose of the powder and introduce it into the tube like so. Some more. A bit too much there. There we go. I think one more scoop should do it. Yeah. And we can even push it down into a little pile using the splint, like so. Next we attach our delivery tube. Better if you can use silicone tubing. We've got rubber tubing here. Attach the silicone tube, rubber tubing, delivery tube, onto the end of the Pasteur pipette, and make sure that's on pretty securely. Like so. And finally we can adjust the angle by rotating to make sure that the delivery tube is under the water in the trough there. We'll be using these small sample tubes as our collection tubes, just because they're more convenient to use in test tubes and easier to hold really in this small scale. So the tubes there, and we're almost ready to proceed. Let's just fill those tubes with water to begin with, so that we can use them during the experiment. And they stand right nicely on the side. Now we need to light our spirit burner again. There it is. And the spirit burners are light. And we're good to go with our dehydration. So what one does is start by heating the aluminium oxide. You'll notice bubbles of hot air, of course, immediately start to issue from the delivery tube there. Let's just tilt that angle a little bit better. There. So you may see bubbles now coming out of the delivery tube. And we really need to make sure that our aluminium oxide is quite hot before we start moving the heat from the burner down to the end where we've got our stock of propan-2-ol. Make that nice and hot. Well, let's start collecting gas, because we expect by conduction to some of the alcohol to be vaporized, and as soon as we see a collection of bubbles such as this, we can flick that over, and there you can see bubbles collecting quite quickly, and hopefully some of that is our dehydration product. Well, that's one tube of gas collected, and it won't remain under, so I'll just put the stopper on upside down, leave that there, and start collecting again. Oops, wrong way up. There we go. A nice steady flow of product is preferred, of course, to any sudden burst. You can probably see a nice steady flow of bubbles there now. And there we have. So we can remove the heat from the burner, stopper our gas in our collection tube, and remove the delivery tube from the water bath very simply by raising the apparatus like so. So there we are. That's the dehydration of propan-2-ol. We can do a couple of tests.